Hi, Anatoly. How you doing?
Hi, Konstantin. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Super. Doing well. Thanks. Good to see you. All right, let's give people a moment to join and we will start. Okay, let's get right into it. Let me share my screen. And
Sounds
today,
exciting.
yeah, thank you. And today's session will be about the security awareness training and why it's needed, how to conduct it, what to expect from it, and how to properly record, keep the record about all those trainings for the audit from the auditor or the audit perspective. So first thing first, when we're talking about GRC, of course, everything comes back to technology, people, and physical assets, right? If we have a building, we need to protect it. If we have a technology platform, we need to protect it. If we have people, we need to protect them. And the best way to protect people is actually to train them on the protection measures that we feel that are applicable to our business. And some of them are common sense, like general security measures that people could take to protect themselves at the workplace, outside of the workplace, to protect companies' data, to protect other assets that they interact with. And the other pieces, or let's call it uh, sub topics, let's put it this way. The other topics are about more targeted, more special, more targeted on the actual protection of companies' internal assets. Like what I mean here is some specialized training. For instance, if there's a new medical equipment that we install and implement in our company, then we need to train people on how to use it properly and safely. And trainings go beyond, of course, security awareness, and we will touch this subject in a bit. But the most important thing for us to understand is that trainings are general. It could be like general, like about everything, um, created and implemented from the common sense perspective, like from our knowledge about the world. Other trainings are more specialized. They are around a particular topic or subject, and what's interesting is that they are all equally important inside the company, and it goes well along with companies' policies because training are just the actual actions that the company takes and implements to enforce those policies. We know a lot about training the large language models and how it really helps them navigate the world and orient in the software space, how they learn to write code and everything. And we know that education generally, historically, played a huge role in our overall progress as people, as humans. So training just continues that trend. And but when we talk from the GRC perspective, of course, we look only at one aspect of it, the actual security, and maybe phishing, which also is in that security domain. But I would say that overall, the organization that trains people on something, that cherishes continuous education, will be doing much better overall than all the other organizations out there. So with the security trainings, historically, it happened that um, it was always the last thing to implement in the majority of businesses, except the regulated environments, except banking industry, healthcare, and military, for example, or government. And it's quite understandable because the security training uh, presumably does nothing good for the organization, doesn't add any value, which is, of course, a wrong statement because it does. But this is how it's perceived. So our our role as GRC specialist, our mission here is to change that view at security training. And I will give you the explanation and some examples of how it worked in my case when I go in when I work with the company as a virtual CISO, for example, and how the establishment of security trainings and phishing trainings actually change people's view at the world around them, at how they interact with those assets around them, with information systems, with buildings, with removable media, with their devices and stuff. And what are those real threats that they should be aware of, and how to actually protect themselves from the bad things that may happen if uh, they are attacked or somebody hacks into their systems. So let's get right into it. In the security domain, in GRC domain, we mainly know about two types of trainings, which is general awareness. It's not, I'm not talking about the specialized training here. It's the security awareness training, like general security awareness training, and phishing training or phishing simulation. The security awareness training is all about general knowledge about um, the security topics. Okay, so what we train people on is how to protect your information and all assets, how to protect your user accounts, why second factor authentication is necessary, how to handle how the company performs data classification, what data is recognized as sensitive, what is recognized as public, and so on. How to understand what when you're dealing with data, what category it actually belongs to, how to properly handle sensitive types of data. Then it goes to physical security. You have a laptop in your hands, maybe the company issued cell phone. You have access, and you operate within the real world, and your goal is to protect the device while you have it, and even when you leave it somewhere, you need to ensure that it's a safe place and it will not be there is a lower chance for it to be stolen or damaged or anything. Then general security awareness training goes into incident response or incident reporting procedure. if there there is a certain incident inside the organization, somebody breaks the window, or breaks into the office space, somebody hacks you're no longer able to log into your email account, or the system that you were using is no longer accessible, things of that nature. You need to know how to report those things properly and what to expect from the handling team, from the incident handling team, how soon they will react on your incident, what are those expectations that the company sets for you from that regard. Also, it also relates to the internal threat. The modern security awareness training materials and are paying a lot of attention to the internal threat. If you feel that someone is um, doing something that they should not be supposed that they're not supposed to do, for example, if they're accessing some rooms that they shouldn't be in, or they print a lot, or they download a lot, or you can note it, or they uh, make calls secretly and privately with and you can realize that it's about the actual business matter. Then basically you also need to stay vigilant about all that, and it also goes into the main security, like general security awareness training, all the education and all those things. You get trained on how to recognize the security event, how to report it properly, what to expect in return, how soon it will be handled, and what is the escalation path, who you should go through. Is it HR? Is it the security team, or is it the IT team? And just how it all plays together inside your particular company that you work for. And then the general awareness training also tells you about how to um, take this operational knowledge, that everything that you know about how the security measures work inside your organization, and apply it in the situations when you deal with the outside world. Um, the last thing that security awareness training, it's not but the least but not last, that security awareness training covers could be, of course, all the security policies that we have in the organization, starting with acceptable use, going through and going through everything else up until all stuff is covered. Um, who's joined? Is it Shika? Hey, Shika, how you doing?
Good, good yourself.
Good, good. Thank you. So today we are going through the security awareness training and phishing training. And it's more theoretical than practical, like overall, but I'm trying to explain why in the world we do have these things, and how they could do good for the organization or people. So overall, just to sum up, the security awareness training is the actual implementation or enforcement of all those policies that we write, or different departments write in the organization, right? But of course, it's one angle. It's looked through from the security perspective, and it touches things like user account protection, phishing recognition, sensitive data handling, physical security, incident, and the policies, and of course the reporting of security incidents and what to expect after you submit that report, who you submitted to, what to expect from the company, how to participate, how to help resolve it altogether. Then the other type of the general security awareness training that we know of is actual phishing simulation. This is a practical component to show you how to show the people inside the organization how simple actions and simple manipulation of our I don't know how to say it, of our consciousness can result in a security incident, and how damaging it is actually for the whole organization. When it is quite recently introduced practice in many organizations, and the reason for it is because mainly the administrative controls of GRC, those policies and paperwork and everything, was always detached from the actual operations with the IT operations, the cloud operations, and such, and only when including other types of operations like HR, accounting, legal, and stuff. And only when companies started realizing that those things are disconnected and they started finding ways how to connect them, they realized that there have been such a big number of issues already, like data breaches. I mean, a lot of reputational damage or physical damage or whatever happening because of that disconnect. And they figured out that it actually came from the simple practices of social engineering mainly, rather than the actual break-ins into the cloud or environment or even physical environment, because we know how to really well protect the physical objects, except the war. We cannot save them from the war and some other disasters, but in terms of just general protection, we know it well, and we have learned throughout the past like couple of decades on how to protect the informational assets, information systems. But then when just a simple email comes in and it looks like it's from your CEO, and you are the accountant, and they just say, hey, like normal, like if it was before, they just say, hey, you need to send this $200,000 to that account and just do it and report back. And if it kind of goes into your normal practice, like a normal workflow, if you're used to receiving that sort of email from them, and you will not even verify whether it's legit or not. You will just do it and report back, and only then you can realize that it was sent by a fake, by the malicious actor, and now the money are in someone else's bank account, and you cannot return them. So situations like that, they're quite common, and then you receive a password reset email. You are not certain why it's a password reset email, but it's, of course, it comes from it looks legitimate. It looks like it comes from the system when you use and operate. So you just go ahead and reset that password, and now the other people have your password. They can log in and do whatever they want inside your user account. And depending on your role inside the organization, it could be less or more damaging, but usually it is actually more than less. And phishing simulation is here to address all that, right? And if the security awareness training is generally prepares you for the security incidents overall, then phishing simulation actually helps you understand that those test scenarios, those actual scenarios, real life scenarios that could lead to a security incident. And from that, it's like learning by. So if the security awareness training is just the educational material, phishing simulation is learning by example, right? And if we know from training LLMs that there's one type of training when you label the data, and and you just extract parameters and do things like that, and it just learns. But then you always run those reinforcement learning cycles for the LLM to better understand what the actual scenarios, right? That where to use that knowledge and how to apply it. And same, it's quite similar to how we humans operate, right? So if we have examples to learn from, we're much better at handling those situations going forward, because we know how to extrapolate. I believe it's the right word here. We know how to generalize things and to detect some through some commonalities and patterns to detect the similar situations. So we don't want to fall into a trap. And I mean, it's quite enough for these types of trainings, because I'm not showing you the actual scenarios here, and nothing very entertaining. But let me go straight to the outcomes here. Maybe we'll take an additional step to the outcomes through reviewing some processes. But overall, the most interesting part, I believe, in today's session is to for me to share with you the actual outcomes that I've seen in the organizations, how training affects people, how it impacts them. It's important, of course. So this slide is all about how to report the incident, and let me touch this real quick. So when you report, a security awareness training gives you the actual information about when and how to report the security incident. The phishing simulation gets you very close to that point, so you basically report it, right? Because if you detect a phishing, you can report it. But then there's another thing that is actually very important for the people in the company to be aware of, is what to expect from that report and how quickly it will be processed, how much participation is required from them to help solve the situation, if at all, and what's their role in the incident handling post reporting. Because many people could think, okay, I reported and I stay away from it, but in fact it's not. So the training should actually tell them and we should be very clear about it, that once you report a security incident, you are part of the resolution process. It's like when you report a crime, you become a part of the resolution process, of the legal process, right? So you're a witness, and your input matters along the way. So basically, let me get straight to the outcomes and how it transforms the organizations, the training. We all know that, and it's quite common, and I mean, it's like natural for people and for the organization to train, to continuously educate themselves, or to push other people to learn something continuously, right? As we work in the IT or like technology industry specifically, we have to learn a lot every day, and so from that perspective, when we give people the training material, it is not something that they cannot consume, right? So we should know that for sure, and we should not be shy about it. We should not be concerned that we are trying to fill their brains with the unnecessary material or something that is not as important as the actual business outcomes, because we all consume information, we all learn and educate ourselves, and from that perspective, consuming the training material is quite natural for people, right? However, of course, the importance and I'll stay with the word importance here, is questionable. And you know that when you join the new organization, you take like different sorts of trainings for the first few days of your employment. It's all just opening those different platforms, HR platform, security platform, whatever the company implements, and go through and watch all those videos, answer questions, and take tests, pass them, get those virtual small certificates or whatever, collect them, and this is actually how you become a part of the organization. This is your orientation uh, phase, right? That is very important. And here, I'd say that the security awareness training comes together in that same package, and it teaches you. It's like a part of the orientation in company security policies. So it teaches you about the rules and that constitution that we told about, that right, those security policies um, that are enforced in the organizations, how to properly navigate them, how to stay within the boundaries by still being free, and liberated. Yeah, so and what happens is, this is what I see in the companies, is that when there is a security awareness training that goes together in the same package with all HR trainings and with all whatever, like business operational workplace safety, workplace I don't know, rules and stuff like that, it gains it actually it gives people some uh, understanding, but mainly uh, the training content, when it's provided in such a short period of time, in such a dense manner, like it's a lot of training blocks altogether, people, and I mean everyone is um, kind of similar in that regard. We take out only like one two statements from each training, if at all. We forget about them rather quickly, right? So here is the question about the efficiency. It's the efficiency here is quite questionable, and as people don't actually remember what was on that particular training or whatever, it actually impacts. Uh, it does little to them, and it does very little to the organization. And what I know that works much better is when it's not about the regularity of those security trainings. It's about constant reminders of those small things. And we need to talk about that, and now turn the table. So imagine we have a person joining the company. They do all sorts of training, including our security awareness training, right? And they take very little out of it. And they start working in the company. And when there is a security incident, um, the first thing they do is they try to recall what they should do in order to report it. If they don't find the immediate answer, they just what they do first. It depends, of course, on how responsible the person is, but I would say that there's a very big chance that the person will just try to stay away from it, and maybe not will try to not notice the security incident or stuff, right? So as we turn the table now and not look at things from the employee perspective, let's look at things from the actual company perspective. I told you a little while ago that what I'm trying to always do is to work with all stakeholders, with the department managers, and what I'm trying to do while as in my GRC role is I'm trying to train them on our security policies, to make sure that we constantly touch the security topics and discuss them, and recall the actual policy statements. Of course, it's not like very it's done in the course of normal conversation. It's not something that I don't close them in the room, and just try to influence. it just happens naturally. So we exchange information, like some bits of information here and then. And what I'm trying to mix in the security topics into those conversations. And what starts happening is they will start reflecting back on those. They start bringing me back those topics together with the main operational context that we are discussing. And what's most importantly that happens is when the employee takes that first training, the security awareness training, let's say, all together with the tone of other trainings, the organization, if it's properly influenced, it starts already demanding it starts mixing the security topics into all conversational context, into the majority of operational context that is being exchanged with the employee. And it actually enforces employees to go back to those trainings and recall things. And this is the actual regular security awareness training that I would say I would refer to. And it's probably it's most important. It's much more important than actual those videos that we put together, the educational material, because it's the actual signals for people to go back and revisit, and through that almost invisible way of taking them back to those training materials, we ensure that they start understanding the security context of the organization. Phishing in opposite is actually a punch in the face, right? The phishing training is it could be conducted randomly. You could receive a phishing email or a phishing text or a Slack message or a call at any time while you work for the organization. And if you only took that security awareness training long before and you don't remember a thing, you actually is almost guaranteed to fall for it. And you will be trapped into that phishing experiment. And we should only hope that it was artificially constructed and it was the internal drill rather than the actual phishing incident. So again, the contrast with the phishing training is a direct way to teach people on security, and its value is absolutely high, and I would put it as number one even in the list of things that I was just talking about, because educating stakeholders on security topics and then reflecting it somehow, projecting it back on employees to facilitate their learn revisiting of those security topics and learning more is a much longer process. But while as this phishing simulation is a direct way of putting these topics in front of people and having them learn from their mistakes. And one thing I want to say is that the best training you can get is learning from trial and error. So I would advise that the organizations run security phishing simulations more frequently than they conduct the actual security awareness trainings, because we only succeed after an X number of failures, where X is a big number. And if we let our people fail fast on our internal phishing simulations, then we are guaranteed to increase the overall layer of security, overall security of the organization. It will actually skyrocket through those practical experiments. Now going back to a little bit to the regulation part of it. If no one has any questions, of course, but if you do, please, I'm happy to hear and answer.
Konstantin, you have mentioned the phishing simulation. Is the disaster recovery drills is also a part of training?
The disaster recovery it may be kicked in. So the phishing simulation is about social engineering practices, right? So let's say I send you an email and it looks like it was sent by the company, I don't know, the higher manager of you, and it's quite convincing that they want you to do something. And if you do something, it may actually very well be very well it may actually lead to a disaster, and we may need a recovery from that, but it's not necessarily like that. It usually what I want from you, I mean, I'd say, okay, it definitely leads to a disaster, but the disaster recovery is a part of the incident response process, and it's tested differently. And this is actually where I'm going right now. It's group-based trainings. And did I answer your question, or did I misunderstand it?
Yeah, I just wondering if the disaster recovery drills is also a part of training.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so we can think of it like that. Of course, I usually call it the maybe not, it's not the right word for it, but they call it the compliance testing. So, or GRC testing, if you will. So when you establish the governance program in the organization, you build things and then you run, certain processes, and then you regularly test them, right? Training goes into a bit of it's a bit of a different category. It's more like the education, if you will, and continuous education, rather than the actual testing exercise. But you of course learn from all those business continuity exercises or disaster recovery exercises, and you record your learnings, and you implement certain improvements, process improvements inside your organization to actually ensure that the disaster is less likely to happen, and that your recovery procedures are much better than they were before. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, good. Nice. So the regulatory part of security trainings, of course, the security trainings play a big role in all the compliance standards. By the word standard, I mean it could be framework, it could be a law, it could be anything. Of course, all the audits and the auditors, they require that. And in case of Orbis, when the auditor comes in, they want to see the actual records of the employee general security awareness training, and ideally phishing simulations. But they will be just fine with if you conduct it yearly, because for them it's just just a checkbox. For the organization itself, it's a transformational experience, and continuously transformational experience. Didn't I say that all the training materials should be revisited quite frequently, and new stuff should be incorporated? Some outdated stuff should be removed, so that people, next time they take the training, they receive the most updated information possible. What I wanted to say in the regulation specific, from the regulations perspective, is that such as with specialized training at the workplace, for instance, if a company buys the new machine to operate, It could be, I don't know, like let's call it could be the MRI machine, for instance, in the healthcare organization. There is a group of people that takes training on how to use it, how to safely use it, and how to resolve on the incident response, basically, how to resolve the situations that are unforeseen, and how to predict, how to predict as many unforeseen situations as possible and avoid them, right? So it's basically, again, it's security awareness, and there will be some, there are some, or not some, but many practices that those people take on that equipment that actually goes in the line with our phishing simulations. Like the practical training has two parts, theoretical and practical, right? And it's kind of proven across all domains. What I wanted to say is that from the security perspective and compliance perspective, regulatory perspective, there may be groups of people inside the organization that require additional specialized training on information security in specific, if they work in specific environment, or they touch sensitive types of data. And I just wanted to kind of highlight here that we have the security awareness training, the general security awareness training that applies to the whole organization, right? And phishing simulations that apply to each and every person in the company, right? But let's say if the company operates health information like medical records, or if it touches what is called CUI or CUI, which is the government data, then there should be a group of people created specifically, like in the organization, that will take specialized HIPAA training for dealing with medical records with PHI, and CMMC training for dealing with CUI, right? And there are many other types of information that could require the different groups inside the organization take different types of trainings. And we should always structure trainings in the same manner that we know works for us, for humans, the best. So there should be a theoretical part, like preparing mentally for something, and then practical. And practical should be conducted as frequently as possible. For the theoretical, I gave you a trick about how to force people to learn more about the subject going forward through their own operational environment where they work, their department, the other departments, and stuff like that. Okay, so I think what we already discussed was that we need to establish security awareness training, that we need to establish phishing simulations, that we need to enforce somehow, establish a culture of security awareness, and work with different people in the organization to actually slowly, but how would you say it? It should be it could be a slow process, but the slower it is, you should influence through that slow process the importance of of security aspects in everything that people are doing, right, inside the company and outside, actually, when they deal with the business information, with the devices and stuff. And then the other thing that we discussed was that the practical sessions should be conducted much more frequently than theoretical, and that there are certain groups of people to whom specialized training may apply, and we as GRC experts actually should be aware of all those different types of security trainings and that exist within different departments or branches of the organization. And the other thing is how to manage the training records. It's kind of the last thing that I wanted to touch today. There are many platforms that help you manage compliance, right? And if the company goes with well-known tools like Vanta, Drata, or whatever other GRC management, like compliance management tools, they do provide some sort of training material. But there are also like specialized firms and SaaS platforms just for the training and for phishing simulations. The bigger players are KnowBe4, Proofpoint security awareness. The mid-market is Hoxhunt, Cofense, and the smaller it gets, in terms of the organizational size, the tools like Wizer or uSecure could be used to actually quickly implement security awareness training and phishing simulations inside the organization. Okay, what else I wanted to? Of course, the impact of security training and even specialized training is invisible, mainly. The question is, how do we ensure as GRC people that others are trained well and we ourselves are trained well, and how we feel about how we and the others in the organization feel about the real measures that we implement and maintain to protect the company data, to protect our own data, and to ensure, security from all fronts, physical, digital, and stuff. And we need. I mean, there is no. It all goes back to the like psychological space, right? What we can learn from is the actual incidents. It's probably the best information we could get at the moment, is learning from the actual security incidents, especially involving people. These are the main source of information for each and every company. It gives us better understanding at what our people fall for in terms of phishing and social engineering and just overall hacking tactics that hackers use to get access to our systems or processes. I know that, let's say there's this aviation industry. How they do things is they all the learnings that they have from all the incidents that happened in the whole history of aviation is the public information, and it's being published immediately as soon as it happens, and giving others a chance to learn from it. So, and this is how the whole industry actually becomes more and more and more safe over time. And the number of incidents in aviation go now are just only a fraction of a percent of those flights that where something could go wrong, while in the early days of aviation it was like half, almost like 50% of chance that something will go wrong. So from that, the reason I'm bringing that is because learning from from the internal information, internal signals where people failed or fell for the phishing attack, or experienced some other or there were some incidents because of the changed mental state of a person or what. I'd say this information should be public, and those cases should be recorded and published, and the whole industry should learn from them. And this is only how we can, not only by learning from within the organization, but also in the outside. And we should look for the sources. Unfortunately, I haven't looked for the sources today to give you a better picture of how, of whether we have enough information on how training impacts and the people's awareness of the security issues and how it improves their overall state of compliance and security inside the organizations. I don't have those sources today, but we should be looking for those. And again, the reason I mentioned aviation is that we should be looking for those not only from the internal, because it's always subjective, right? But also from the outside of the organization. And more information we can get and process and transform into the better. And our goal is to also transform it into the training material so we can educate our people better and continuously improve as the physical world aware community, digital world aware community, AI aware community, right? That we improve as that community overall in terms of understanding the security matters, dealing with them, and transforming through that and getting better at spotting those, participating in reporting, participating in resolution and resolving, and maybe taking those lessons back to even our children, I'd say, and teach them on those so they avoid those in the future. Having said all that, I think I know it was more of a theoretical session today than even before, than ever before. But if you guys have any questions for me that I can help you answer about the security awareness, phishing, and other types of training? Cool. I think this is all I have for today. I'll upload the slides to our platform where we exchange all those. And feel free to come back to me with questions that you may have for the next session. And going forward, I'm working on the actual plan for the next a number of sessions to add more practical material into those and make it more interesting going forward. But I believe this was at least helpful today. Thank you guys for attending, and have a good weekend, and I'll see you next Friday.
Thank
Yes,
you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. See you guys.